Hello and welcome to Encore. Yeah, we'll be kicking off with match one very, very soon. I'm so excited for this event. I'm joined here by the wonderful G-Geek.
All right. Well, yeah, this feels a bit weird, but yeah, welcome guys to Encore. I hope you guys are doing well, and yeah, looking forward to this opening match that we got between Nyaruko, Nayko, Hendo, and yeah, it looks as though the wait, what's the 4-1 again? Okay, we're missing a player on the server. Okay, that was
we might be missing one. A few people signed up and
okay.
not actually showing up, which is a bit of a shame, but yeah, it's three players who I think are all comparable skill levels, certainly comparable pace. Yeah, will probably fall behind on consistency a bit, as that's kind of his play style. But yeah, for a three-player match, I'm hoping this one should be a good one and a good way to kick off this 2 days of competition here.
Yeah, I do agree with that sentiment, and for me, I know I might come out as biased, but I feel like Nayko might have a little bit of an edge because he's actually got some good momentum going for him over the course of the last few competitions that he's played. Most notably, coming home with a grand final appearance in the August Monthly Cup, which is of course going to be bolstering a little bit his challenge. He's going to try to get himself a little bit further up the ladder, try to secure at the very least that spot into the playoff qualification zone. Because let's be honest, there's still a couple of points-paying tournaments that are still happening, including, well, in this very weekend with, of course, the regional rest of the world finals. Then you've got the Holy and Leon that's happening the next weekend, and then after that, there will be the September Cup. So it's not all quite settled just yet, especially on the lower half of the top 32, where there can be a lot of movement shifting about. And I hope we can get to covering some of the matches from some of the people that are in those lower rungs, quote unquote, because there's going to be a lot to play for here.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to catch a match with like the likes of kind of Broly or Quattro, who are currently, within like 100 points or so of making it into that top 32, and definitely have a chance to pick up enough points from this competition to do it. And then yeah, we got players like Aris, who's 26 currently taking part, and yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how those players get on, as well as the impact that. Of course, my bias. I think Hendo could do very well in this match.
That's fair.
I'm genuinely not sure who would win out of him and Nayko here. So
yeah, I do feel it can be a little bit of a toss up, but yeah, I do feel like, as I said, I'm more like basing myself. I know I have a bit of a bias, but momentum for Nayko has been pretty solid over the course of the entire year, and has been picking up a little bit more with the August Monthly Cup, of course. So I do bank on him to maybe spring a surprise or two over the course of the match and make a pretty solid bracket run, I reckon. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think both players should have potential to go very far, but yeah. My bias is going to be slightly towards Hendo, but only because, I saw him more recently in the Pro Cup last week, where he was able to reach Grand Final there. So, yeah. Grand Final didn't go as he probably would have liked, but up until that point, it looked very, very good.
All right, so I guess we're just basically just sitting in the passenger seat, waiting for the countdown to go on for the start of the match, and yeah, it's gonna be pretty interesting because out of the entire map pack, I only remember casting one of them in anger. That was back in PIPC 2. That was Candy Crush, if I recall correctly. The rest of them, I tried to get the maps back in the fingers, and yeah, it's fair to say that we were actually having this discussion off camera, but it's kind of wild to see how Trackmania level degrades when you kind of stop bothering with it for a couple weeks. You're like, man, I used to be better than this. I used to actually be somewhat closer than being like 6 seconds off world record pace. But yeah, still, I think most important for me, like I guess kind of a tidbit, is just being able to do clean runs and kind of get the gist of the track. That's the main important thing. And yeah. When it gets a little bit too hard, that's when you get the replays out. As yeah, there are some maps where you just the maps are like, nope, there's no way I can actually push through this. Well, I've had those experiences in previous map packs, and I know where I can actually call my limit before I break out the analysis glasses with other players' replays, as it seems like we are, well, 1 minute away from the start, actually. We have the warm-up going on map number 1, which is due to be Capital. And yeah, as we said, I've already kind of both thrown our predictions away in that particular instance of the match, and I think we should just head into the game. Well, we'll be heading into the game very, very soon, but before that, I guess, for those of you who might not know what Capital is looking like, well, in the space of about 10 seconds, you'll have some very lovely shots to actually get a little bit of a gander at what this map is all about. So originally built from BIPL 1, if I recall correctly, here is a little look at Capital. And with those lovely shots being showcased and out of the way, it's time to let the field loose and go racing for the first time in the bracket here on Encore. Starting with the perspective of Nyaruko for the start of this particular map, currently at the tail end of the field, going through the plastic part, heading into checkpoints number 2 and 3. Very, very tight right-hand turn beforehand, and unfortunately for Nayko, going a little bit too wide at the kind of exit of that left-hander in the dirt, and thus clipping with the right gear. He's going to be left in the dust, and he's going to try to make himself back up the order, try to catch up the second place with Nyaruko. But here it's basically just Hendo just pulling away and driving off into the distance, heading into the third and final sector now. Nyaruko doing his best to fend off the attacks of Nayko behind, as Hendo continues to enjoy a pretty sizable gap of 0.6 of a second, despite a little bit of bravado into that double transition jump section that was looking a little bit treacherous. But now heading into the final sets of corners, it looks like Hendo has got this under lock and key, but he has a very severe slowdown before checkpoint number 11, and Nyaruko rolls it around the outside to snatch the 10-pointer away from Hendo's grasp. It all came undone so quickly and so brutally for Hendo. I wonder what happened there. Yeah, that was a very slight touch that I kind of wagered, but I didn't think it would pay off that hard in terms of the slowdown that he actually took. And that is just a free 10-pointer for Nyaruko, who didn't really think of much, and he said, all right, thank you very much, I'll just take those 10 points.
It's a very, very punishing outside dirt there. You lose speed so fast if you clip there. And yeah, we came in kind of, you know, you reckon Nayko would look best. I thought Hendo would look best, and well, we both got round 1 wrong there, as somehow by consistency Yar picked up a round win. I don't think I've ever said that sentence in my entire life, but this round Nayko and Hendo both up at the front. No major mistakes from any of the players yet, only separated by about 10th and a half. As we head towards this final section, this is the more punishing part of the map typically. You'll see people try and take some very tight lines of its grass and lose out from it, but for now, it's all looking clean. Is Hendo able to keep it clean this time around? Yes, he does, and this looks like a fairly confident round for everyone, until Nayko goes flying at the very end. Is he going to be able to finish? Oh, he's messed up again, and that will be a +0. That's a massive error.
Yeah, not like this, especially on the 100 points for finalist status. That is even more punishing than it usually is, and it usually is pretty punishing to get a null pointer on a 120-point match, but on 100 points, it's even harder. And unfortunately, we do have a little bit of a pixel clip from Nayko against the wall in turn number 2 of all things, not even past checkpoint 1. So yeah, the one of the newest recruits from Thrive Esports is unfortunately down in the doldrums pretty much right from the gates. As we go back to the perspective of the top 2 battle, and it's going to be Nyaruko trying to put Hendo under pressure, currently holding onto the lead by about 1/10 of a second just before the jump into checkpoint number 6. Hendo coming up with a little bit more of an aggressive line through the dirt to get back into the lead by just 13 milliseconds. They're going to be wheel to wheel here for pretty much the remainder of this track, unless there's a big catastrophe happening in the distance. Whoa, again, Hendo having a little bit of a wonky line through that double transition, with the first jump landing sideways and thus landing on the tire sidewall, but a huge slowdown at checkpoint number 10 for Nyaruko indeed, and that's going going to promote Hendo back into the lead of the race. He should be able to make the jump into the risky fin just fine. Yes, but does clip with the right here. And unfortunately for Nayko, again another respawn with just 3 seconds to spare. This time he clears the risky fin, but he's still going to be feeling the effects of that low pointer just a little bit ago. And just that, it all stemmed from just that little nudge of the exit wall just before the risky fin. 1 round to go pretty much for Nayko, and I guess he was a little bit too eager to go to the apex a little bit too early, but that has some devastating effects for sure.
He's clearly got the pace, you know, he's been keeping up with Hendo and Yar, who've been driving like, you know, low 57s, which is, you know, very respectable times, but caught out by the finish twice in a row there, really costing him some points. It's a deceptively tricky one to aim for, but you'd hope not messed up more than, you know, maybe once in a match, honestly. So yeah, unfortunate from Nayko there. It's a good sign that he's got the pace to stick with him, but it's going to be a bit of an uphill battle he's created for himself this time around. He'll be hoping, I think, to see the end of Capital very soon. This is our last round here, which is led by Hendo and Nyaruko. We're both going to keep it clean. It's going to be very tight between them, but Hendo does just eke it out by about half 10th of a second, and Nayko does get a clean run on the board. It might be last, but, you know, it's about trying to build momentum there.
Yeah, it's about trying to build momentum indeed, and yeah, I feel like he's gonna try to find his zen a little bit better as we switch over to the next map. A good opportunity whenever there's like a little bit of a lull in the pace, because yeah, as Scotty once said when we were talking on Let's Talk Trackmania, Trackmania is a very, very kind of all guns blazing kind of game where you do have like 1 solid minute of intense racing, and then you get maybe 10 to 15 seconds tops of rest before after you cross the start finish line, before you actually get on with the next round. So if there is a slight blunder like happened on round 2 for Nayko, you don't really have much time to actually reframe yourself into that state of mind that you need to be to perform at your best. And yeah, Nayko has always been a little bit flaky when it comes to trying to get back into that consistency zone whenever there's like something a little bit upsetting that kind of like threw a monkey wrench into his plans over the course of the match. So quick score recap just before we head into our next map. 36 points for Hendo, currently sitting in the lead. 28 points from Nyaruko in second place, and 12 points for Nayko in third place, who's going to be in desperate need of points to catch up. And let's hope that he's able to capitalize on that map switch of the next 4 ones that are going to be happening, because we're going to be heading into our brand new map for Encore and BIPC3. It's time for Lidior to set the stage.
We're getting underway here on our second map of a competition. Nayko has had a pretty rough start on Capital, so we're going to see whether Ledior manages to treat him any better. For now, Hendo is in the lead with Nyaruko in second, so top 2 will go through, and whoever's last will be relegated instantly into the lower bracket and forced to do a slightly longer run if they want to get deep into the competition. This is quite a... Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. A little bit of latency going in there, but yeah, so far we do see huge slowdown on the landing there before checkpoint 7 by Nyaruko. I was gonna say we had a pretty solid duo tandem actually pulling away from Nayko, but that unfortunate landing from Nyaruko has promoted Nayko up into second place, and at this point I think he should really try to salvage as many points as he can in these early stages of the game, as Hendo looks to be pretty much uncatchable at this point, unless there was of course a very big clip happening or a huge crash on the board. But so far so good for the man from Evo, who's going to be going all the way to the finish line and jumping into the triangle finish with a 100.558 to kick things off. A full 4/10ths clear almost from Nayko, and Nyaruko again with the very unfortunate slowdown midway through the map has tumbled through the standings and only collected 4 points for his efforts. But thankfully, due to the mistakes of Nayko a bit earlier on, he still keeps that advantage pretty solidly over the 10-point range. I think it's about 14 points if my math is correct, from second place Nyaruko to Nayko in third.
Ooh, Nyaruko going into the CP at the start there. That's a pretty odd mistake to make, I'll be honest. I don't think I've seen anyone crash to her, which does tend to be the way with Nyaruko. When he does crash, tend to be in very unexpected ways. But for now, we've got a pretty good race going on between Nayko and Hendo. Only about a tenth and a half between them for now. They survived probably the most dangerous bit, but Nayko clips very slightly there. It is going to lose him for some time, but he should be able to remain in front of Nyaruko here. As I'll be intrigued to see what pace Hendo can lay down here. He looked very, very good last round. I mean, a 0.5 is a very respectable time. Of course, that's only half a second off world record, which I believe is a 59.9. So we'll see if he can match that pace again and how consistent he is looking. 0.3! Wow!
Yeah, that's a pretty strong statement. That's a pretty strong statement. I know we're only very early on in the tournament phase, but still, 0.3. That is, just a touch over, I think, 0.4 away from the current record from Thomas Jean, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, Thomas Jean 59.965, the public record as of on trackmania.io. But it's going to be pretty interesting to see if he continues to turn up the wick, quote unquote, and try to continue shaving down some time here and there. Maybe try to go closer and closer to the 1 minute 0.0 range, but maybe that's a little bit too early to ask for that, as unfortunately for Nyaruko, just a little clip of the wall on the exit of the dirt on the left rear, and that is pretty much all she wrote for him as he finds himself half a second down, and that's going to promote Nayko again through the trials and tribulations of one of his opponents up into second place. Now he's pulling off this sort of consistent drive that has sort of kind of like befuddled him in map number 1, and that's going to be proving to be a very, very valuable outcome for his catch up to second place, as he can continue to bridge the gap slowly but surely, but unfortunately he goes a bit too tight and slows down dramatically. Thankfully for him, Nyaruko is way too far down because he gets another slowdown on landing. Can he make the risky fin? Yeah, he gets a triangle jump regardless, but a few heart flutters there for Nayko, I wager, with those two slowdowns back to back in the space of a few seconds. And yeah, still managing to cross the finish line at 100.5 for Hendo, continuing to pile on the points and passing the bar of 60 points collected.
Yeah, I think Nayko very much got away with that one there. You know, if Nyaruko had driven remotely cleanly or even just made one mistake, he could well have been punished for a questionable ending, but he got away with it. He held on second, and the gap between him and Nyaruko is down to only 10 points now, and it'd be a fair bit closer if he hadn't had that DNF on Capital, but he's getting into the swing of things now. Hasn't really managed to usurp Hendo at all, who has looked fairly dominant for all of his match. I think, you know, he lost the first round on Capital, and I don't think I've seen him lose a round since.
Yeah, I think you do make a good point. Yeah, I think that was the only round loss that he incurred, and might be about to incur a second round loss because Nayko is actually chomping up the bit and actually putting pressure on the Englishman from Team Evo. And now we go on to a last turn pass. Nayko is going to make it stick. Great bit of driving from Nayko here on the third and final sector, because he was actually looking pretty consistently okay in terms of the gap versus Hendo over the course of the first few rounds. Of course, round 3 with that slowdown, those two back-to-back slowdowns in third sectors was looking a little bit shaky. But yeah, round 4 was pretty much the kick that he exactly needed. That first 10-pointer is going to be a valuable boost. It's such a psychological barrier that gets to be lifted off of his shoulders, psychological weight off of his shoulders rather, and I feel like that is going to be setting him up for a bit of a nicer comeback for that second place that is worthy of qualification to the following part of the winner bracket, not lower bracket. That's if he finishes in third. Come on, Thomas, brain, wake up.
Yeah, he's half the gap there in that round alone between himself and Nyaruko, so he's pretty close to overtaking here. Of course, we do get a map change, so we'll see how they both fare here. Obviously, you'd have to say map 1 went in favor of Nyar, map 2 went in favor of Nayko, so we'll see how map 3 goes and whether or not he is able to close that gap down and get into second place. Star of the show, though, has very much been Hendo. He's kind of got the effect of doing so well we haven't mentioned him too much, because there just hasn't been too much going on around him, you know.
That is indeed true, as we are getting started very, very soon, about 20 seconds on our next track, Menace by Whiskey and Aziel. Alrighty then, map 3 is now underway, and just a little quick score recap as we head into that third map. Hendo firmly in the lead with 72 points. Nyaruko and Nayko just 4 points apart, 44 to 40. So yeah, it's pretty much game on when it comes to continuing the journey in the winner bracket here in Encore as we go through the first 2 checkpoints here of this track, and it's going to be Nayko pulling a little bit of a lead. Well, a little bit is all understatement.
Not really anymore.
Not really in the lead anymore, as he unfortunately went a little bit too wide at the exit of that turn before the grass part in checkpoint 4. Such a shame for the Frenchman from Thrive to throw it all away like that, and that's going to lead yet another to another Hendo and Nyaruko first and second tandem as we're heading through to the last few checkpoints, through the long, twisty dirt part, through to the grass, making it checkpoint number 10, then checkpoint number 11 coming up after that little downhill. Ooh, Nyaruko going very close to the outside wall just before the downhill to checkpoint 11, and Hendo retaking the lead just ahead of Nyaruko just before the risky fin. A bit more speed for Nyaruko, but not enough to snipe Hendo away from the victory. 28 millisecond of a gap between first and second and Nayko. Unfortunately, such a promising start, and then it went all away. It all slipped away because of that wide exit of the turn just after checkpoint 3.
Yeah, tiny margins there. And margins that you'd have to say, all things considered, Nayko will probably be quite happy with. He would much rather see Hendo winning these rounds than Nyaruko. So he gets away with only dropping 2 points in that competition from his mistake. So we'll see whether he can clean it up. It was this drift that cost him last time. He didn't quite go tight enough. He does this time around, so made it further than last time. But for now, halfway through the track, and we have the entire field still there. This drift is a very punishing one. Is everyone going to keep it safe and clean? Yes, they do. So it looks like Hendo is extending a bit of a lead as Nyaruko goes off on the left. I have never seen that mistake before. That's DR. You never quite know what you're going to get from him. So, Nayko, with the gear drop, is going to hinder his ability to catch Hendo at all, but he will at least pick up a second place from this round, assuming all keep it clean going into this final section. And they do, as we see, a 0.0 from Hendo and a 0.2 from Nayko. You're going to finish? Just about.
Not quite just. I'd say it's still a healthy margin. 3 seconds to spare after all the blunders. You say, oh, okay, I'll take it. I was still like easy, but it's whenever you end up with 8 or 9 seconds of deficit to the leader that you can start to have a little bit of squeaky bum time as when it comes to actually reaching the finish line to get the points. As we head into round number 3 already here on Menace, and yeah, Nayko making it while continuing to keep the gap roughly about the same, because it was pretty much an even trade of points. Plus 2 points for Nyaruko on round 1 and plus 2 points for Nayko on round number 2, so it's pretty much still all to play for, and still all to play for in this round as well. Everybody's still packed within a tenth of a second, and look at that corner before checkpoint 7 from Nayko, and it's going to be Hendo this time on the back foot, dropping down to almost 0.2 of a second of a deficit to Nayko and Nyaruko, who are going to be tandeming this together and battling for the lead of the race, and that's going to be a very, very important result, because it could either even the gap back down to just even Stevens in terms of like having 4 50 points apiece, and unfortunately for Nayko, that's a very unfortunate crash right at the pinch on the road on the way downhill, and Nyaruko will inherit the round win as a result of that blunder. Hendo less than a tenth behind, and Nayko dropped down to 6 tenths behind the leader after having held the lead for a few consecutive checkpoints, but that is just going to be dealing a little bit of a blow to his chances of actually catching up to the second place driver now.
Yep, although I will give a little bit of a mention to the first place driver, Hendo, who is now on 98 points, so long as he finishes this round, he will be going on to finalist, and we'll have an opportunity to wrap it up on the very first round of Candy Crush. So he is looking in a very confident position. Nayko clips again, and he seems to really be struggling with consistency here on these tracks. Perhaps just doesn't know them as well as Nyaruko does, of course. I mean, you know, I would have played this map back in BIPL Season 1 2 years ago or so. Not that I think any muscle memory is going to carry over from that particularly, but yeah, just a few too many mistakes coming out from Nayko, and I think he could get a nasty surprise here from the Yorkshireman.
Hendo across the line, a 102.002 for the man from Evo, and yeah, Nyaruko just a tenth behind, well, 150 milliseconds behind, right on the dot. And yeah, Nayko having a little bit of a nasty map after having gotten his mojo back. It seemed on map number 2. It seems like he's lost his mojo again for some reason. But once again, it seems like very much those 1-minute breaks are pretty much just a make or break deal for the drivers to try and center themselves back up into there, or there might be a little bit of a lack of map knowledge and maybe a little bit of an advantage for those that come in after having played BIPC 3, of course, where the same map pack has been used as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Nayko actually gets on with the map pack in that sense as he gets the ball rolling, and maybe he might drop out into the lower bracket now that I think about it, because yeah, Nyaruko seems to have a little bit more of a measure of the map pack overall compared to Nayko, but I think that in the lower bracket with that sort of stake that there is no longer a safety net attached to you, I feel like that could also provide a bit of motivational boost for Nayko to actually get back on the saddle and try to apprehend the maps correctly. So, quick score recap as we head into the 4th map of the rotation. Finalist status for Hendo, 70 points for Nyaruko, 3 wins away from said finalist status, and 58 points for Nayko as we're heading onto Mine's Candy Crush.
Come and set me free. Come and set me free.
And with that out of the way, it's time to get started. Sorry to cut you off there, but I'll let you do the opening run for the first couple of checkpoints. But here we are then. First attempt then for Hendo to conclude that match and secure his point already into the next part of the winner bracket.
Yeah, as we see one opponent drop out immediately, Nyaruko going 2 inside on the sausage drift there. Very common mistake to make. We've seen that quite a few times. So it is up to Nayko to try and deny Hendo here. But even if he does, I think it's kind of delaying the inevitable. Hendo has kind of looked in a different class here in this match. Maybe not world ahead in pace, but certainly there in consistency, as it shows again. And this will be all done for Hendo here, so long as he can keep it clean. Nyaruko about a second behind. There is not a second more to gain from Hendo on the rest of his track combined. All he has to do is 2 more turns here. Make it through this chicane into the finish, and there we go with a 56-8. He will win the first round here, securing his place into the upper bracket, and that will leave it as a straight fight between Nyaruko and Nayko.
Yeah, that's pretty much it's pretty much the start of the match within the match, because essentially I always use this term. I know I kind of overuse it a bit sometimes, but yeah, Hendo kind of acted as a bit of a scarecrow in that sense. He's the one that is the main hogger of the 10-point playing position. He's the main hogger of the first places, but now that the scarecrow is out of the playing field, the 10-pointer is now officially unlocked, quote-unquote, for the other drivers to go at it. And this is where it's going to be where Nayko needs to pick up the pace, because we're officially arriving at the point of no return for him, because Nyaruko seems to be the more dominant force of the two in terms of who can actually get the most consistent performances. Nayko does have flashes of pace here and there, but it's very much shown cracks in the armor more than a few times, and now it's the turn of Nyaruko to show a crack in the armor after that little touch of the outside wall, heading into checkpoint number 7, promoting Nayko into the lead of the race. And yeah, Nyaruko dropping the ball quite significantly, dropping to almost 2 seconds behind Nayko. Now it's all a matter of making it through to the finish. Is he going to go for the risky fin? Yes, he does, and he makes it through just fine with a 57.061. Could this be the start of the fight back? He still has 14 points. He has 14 points heading into this round to catch up to. He's already bridged that gap back down to around 10 points. There we go, 82 to 72. I wonder, he might make it just, but he needs to keep the ball for himself. He does not need to drop it at any point.
If I could do maths correctly, which is, very questionable, if Nayko wins the next 3 rounds and Nyaruko comes second, I think we get double finalist. So even the best case scenario here for Nayko is double finalist at this point. It's not giving him much room for much margin for error at all here. That said, you did successfully manage to cast curse Nyaruko last time, talking about how he was being more consistent before he instantly clipped the outside dirt. This time around, he makes it through there, and these two are absolutely neck and neck. Very similar pace here. Yar looks to get kind of a shorter shorter distance on the plastic, but less speed. Although gets a cleaner chicane and will hold on by less than 10th of a second. Great race between the two of them there.
Yeah, that was a great race, and actually a very big discrepancy of lines between Nayko and Nyaruko at the plastic just before checkpoints 10 and 11, actually, where Nayko opted for a very wide first part before actually going for a very sharp dive as the car goes downhill into the plastic to try and get some more speed going his way. And already this time around, it's going to be Nyaruko on the back foot with a very uncharacteristic mistake in the first few turns of the track, leaving Nayko with it all to do, leading himself with it all to do, and Nayko with a gap of 6/10 to manage all the way up until the end. But that gap can both be a blessing or a curse. It's a bit of a double-edged sword that's hanging over his head right now that could either prove to be fruitful in his attempt to continue piling on the pressure on Nyaruko, or could result in some disastrous implications if he thinks about that gap too much. Currently, you can see the gap winding back down to about half to what it was before. At the end of Sector 1, it was 6/10. Now it's down to 3/10. Now down to less than 2/10 as Nyaruko pokes up a little bit of the pace. Now we're heading into the final turn, and Nayko goes a little bit too wide, forced to actually lift a little bit to avoid hitting the pole, and that's promoting Nyaruko into the lead of the race and into the win with a .318, and that is it. Finalist status now for Nyaruko, as it seems like we're going to be heading into a map change no matter what. 84 points for Nayko. I feel for the Frenchman, really, because I was expecting maybe the momentum that he had accumulated over the last few weeks could try to set himself up in a bit of a better mood. But unfortunately, it looks as though there's still quite a few teething issues into getting his tournament started. And now he's pretty much his back against the wall. He has to go for back-to-back denials. Win or bust. That's all that matters for now.
Yeah, it's going to be an uphill battle for him. He will need, I believe, 3 wins in a row to close it out here as we head back to Capital. Matt, but I have to say, he didn't look too comfortable on in the first rotation at all. So it's going to be quite an ask, but stranger things have happened for sure. And it certainly isn't over yet. There's also the fair chance that Nyaruko could get inside his own head and, struggle from there.
Yeah, I totally get what you're coming from. So just before we head into our first finalist attempt for Nyaruko, let's take another little bit of a gander at Capital for those of you that might be coming in on first or who have already forgotten what it looks like.
We get underway here on Capital. Nayko versus Nyaruko. Nyaruko is in finalist. Nayko has 84 points, so he will need 3 round wins on the bounce to finish this out here. It's starting off well, as he is keeping Nyar on his toes. But he has a lot of work to do here. He might need some mistakes from Yar, and he's going to need some good rounds from himself. He goes so risky there. I did not think he'd survive that, and to be honest, I'm not really sure he did. Ball is definitely into Nyaruko's court here. Nayko DNFs, and that will be game.
Oh, yeah, that's such a shame to see that happen. Because one lesson you always learn in Trackmania, even in dire circumstances like this, is you never retire, because you never know what can truly happen. Anything can happen in Trackmania, and usually does. But here for Nayko, it was too much to bear. And as Nyaruko crosses the finish line, it is GG to him and to Hendo, who continue the adventure in the winner bracket. And as for Nayko, he's like, well, I guess I only have one recourse, and it's to do top 2 from here on out, because now is lower bracket time, no longer the safety net. And as I said, that might that might be either a blessing or a curse. I've already said that he could actually give him a motivational push, but that motivational push can only help you so far. It's going to be about how quickly he can actually grasp the maps. And unfortunately, he did get a grasp of one map, maybe, but the rest of him, it was kind of either on off or it didn't quite click just yet. So yeah, it's a little bit of a shame for Nayko, but I hope that he can actually bounce back in the lower bracket.
Yeah, I really hope he can, because he is a very, very good player, and I think it's a pretty rough draw to run into Hendo and Nyaruko. You know, two incredibly fast players. You know, in round one, I mean, it's amazing. It's the list of names taking part is stunning, but I do still feel for Nayko slightly there, hoping he can, you know, have a good lower bracket run here. As for the other two, I think Hendo is looking exceptionally good. Very, very consistent. So, yeah, good performance from him. We're here for production. We might be able to hop into another match.
Okay.
I see no harm in that.
Yeah, no, I don't see either. It sounds pretty interesting. What's the match we're going to be heading into? It's Shadow and Tommy currently still on the track. We're heading into Candy Crush. We already have Miquacha, who's been designated as the winner. He's already finished his rounds, so the Flying Finn will be seeing himself go through to the next phase of the winner brackets, and it's always good to see from the man who, of course, participated in the 2 out of the previous 3 World Cups we've had in Trackmania. He participated in 2021 and 2022, but for now it's going to be Shadow leading Tommy by quite a significant margin, and that margin is set to increase after that little hit of the wall on the outside of checkpoint number 7 here on Candy Crush. And so the Italian player from Team Pivo is not going to be looking set to increase his point count with a 10-pointer in the books, waiting just to cross the finish line with the risky thing coming in. It's going to be a 57.252 at the line for Shadow, with Tommy going, of course, the safe in to actually clock in the 6 points for second place and still continue keeping the ball rolling. And you can see now we're heading into close to finalist status, and we're going to be having a brand new map coming in.
Yeah, this is where my knowledge of, like, I consider myself very, very knowledgeable on the BITM scene. And then outside of that, it starts to fall apart. So these aren't names I know well. So it's really cool to see them playing in our events and playing on our maps. Just from hopping in, the squad looks very similar to what we saw between Nyaruko and Nayko.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if a bit like
feels
Hendo, whether or not Miquacha kind of ran away from it a little bit.
Yeah, it does feel eerily similar, doesn't it? It does feel really, really similar with how the gap between P2 and P3 are kind of like the same as what we see with Nayko and Nyaruko, roughly in the 10 to 15 point range, and with one player already done. I think that was pretty much just a one-sided match or a washout, I guess, for Miquacha. As yeah. Yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting to see if Tommy has maybe something to spring up with in the capital. This is maybe more unknown variables, because those are players that haven't had the chance to cover previously on Trackmania matches before. So this will be interesting to see. As just a quick score recap, it's going to be Miquacha, of course, qualifying for the next phase of the winner bracket. Then we have Shadow on 96 points, just one round finish, and he's in final status. And Tommy is sitting on 78. The Dutchman is going to have a lot to catch up to, as we're straight up heading into our first round on this rotation of capital. And I'm just gonna let you take it away, Patster, because yeah, this is it's a little bit of a again, point of no return, very much for the chaser compared to the one being chased.
Yep. So 96 points to 78 there. It's going to be a big uphill battle for Tommy here, but it starts off well with Shadow falling a little behind from the start. However, a 10th is a gap that can definitely be made up here. See how they handle this slide here. This can be very challenging. Shadow definitely gets a more inside line there. Is he going to be able to catch up going over grass at all? The gap is maintained there, but he definitely gets a worse line on the dirt there. Getting a little bit of airtime, it almost looked like. Going into this drift and jump here. High chance for mistakes and crashes, as Tommy proves. The margins there are so fine, and just a little too fine for Tommy there. That is going to move Shadow into last chance, into finalist. Yes, of course, finalist. Yes, first ever BITM event to be done in cup mode. So you're going to hear me keep saying last chance based off pure habit.
Don't worry, because I may or may not have done the exact opposite whenever I was doing Beacon World League this year. So
Yeah.
don't worry, we're even on that front. And yeah, that was such a hard hit for Tommy, and that was something I kind of felt bad to laugh at, because I don't know why, but he hit the flagpole, right? And for me, I had the meme of the guy who jumped into the door frame and just hit his head with it. That was the sound I had in my head whenever Tommy actually hit the flagpole. I know that might be a very specific one, but some of you might actually see where I'm coming from with this. In the meantime, heading into this next round, and it's going to be game over as Tommy flips before checkpoint number 6, and it's going to be all down to Shadow now to just bring this one home and reach the finish line to guarantee his place into the next round of the winner bracket here at Encore. Just a couple of checkpoints left to go, and yet Tommy has unfortunately left the building way too early with that flip just before checkpoint 6. Now the slingshot around the outside at checkpoint 11, and then the jump into the risky fin, and it is GG to Shadow, who joins me, Quattro, into the next part of the winner bracket, of course, with a 57.515. Tommy will be sent down to lower, and we'll have it all to do without any kind of protection now, where third and fourth will be meaning elimination, of course, as part of the lower bracket. And I think that's pretty much all there is to this opening round of matches. Some of the outcomes that we've seen, pretty much expected. Well, in your opinion, of course, with Hendo, I was maybe a bit more optimistic about Nayko's chances, but yeah, it turns out it was kind of a bit of a one-sided first round, as it ever is, really, in these sort of double elimination bracket opening rounds. But I feel like it can be springing up some pretty spicy matchups starting from the next round, I think.
Yeah, I'm just having a look through all of the other results to see if there's any big surprise in terms of who has and hasn't got through. No one really leaping out at me. Binks beating Acros there. I reckon that would have been quite close as well. But yeah, all looking like all of the results have been pretty tame here, and I reckon this will really start to spice up from next round. Which unfortunately I will not be here for. I will be replaced by wonderful Yataragasu going into next match, if I remember correctly. So yeah, we will be throwing to probably a 10-15 minute break now to get the next set of matches set up. So yeah, I will look forward to watching from the sidelines, and yeah, see you all then.